everyone, and welcome to another Player 2 review discussion. My name is Matt Hewson, and I am joined by the legend that is Jess Zammit. How are you, Jess?
I am good. I am doing well. I have just spent a bunch of time with the game that we're going to be talking about today, and have a lot of thoughts and feelings having come out the other side.
Lot
So
of thoughts and
feeling
feelings.
good.
We are talking about Avowed,
Mm.
as you can tell from the fancy graphics that are, around our faces right now if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast feed, well, you just have to imagine it. There's fancy graphics. But anyway, let's talk about Obsidian's latest game. It's out on PlayStation. Sorry, it's not on PlayStation. It's one of the Xbox games that's not on PlayStation. It's on Xbox and it's on Steam.
Yeah.
It is a very Obsidian game, and I have always been an Obsidian fan. Jess, what about yourself? Do you get down with Obsidian games in general?
Some, yes.
Yes.
I am by no means an expert. I went into Avowed, for example, with zero Pillars of Eternity experience, so that was,
Yep.
we'll talk about that. But enjoyed the Outer Worlds. Uh, Fallout, New Vegas.
Fallout New Vegas. Yes.
Is that
That's
Obsidian?
them. That's Obsidian.
Yes, okay, great. I was like, what if I'm horribly wrong? Yes, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is the best
mm,
Fallout, I think.
Sorry,
But anyway.
just one of those moments where I was like, I know this to be true, but what if this is just something? Yeah.
All my gamer cred is gone.
Yes. So yeah, Jesus Christ. No. Yeah. So yeah, fan of Obsidian's RPGs for sure.
Nice. So this is a very Obsidian RPG in that it is a continuation of the Pillars of Eternity universe. For those that haven't played Pillars of Eternity, they're very traditional CRPGs. Those old school PC RPGs that really you want to be playing with a mouse and keyboard. Whereas Avowed is much closer to something like Skyrim or Bethesda's kind of works. So it's a more approachable, I guess, game than the Pillars series. Jess, you did our full review, which is now live on Player 2. You were quite complimentary of the game. What for you is the key to Avowed?
I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a lot to really like about it that I think other RPGs have perhaps struggled with in the past, and also just things that are good about it because it's what Obsidian is good at, I guess.
Yeah.
So the games that we mentioned before, The Outer Worlds, Fallout New Vegas, both amazing games with amazing writing. Funny, I would say, very funny games. Obsidian's writing is like extremely witty and
very
all
black
of the characters
humor.
are,
They run a black humor. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They do. And excellent characters. Even the minor characters, I think they do a great job of characterizing, like just random people that you walk past in the street that are having conversations amongst themselves, just NPCs that you won't see past that one moment, but they're having very interesting conversations. So I think the writing is a big part of it. I think the quest design is a big part of it. It's a big RPG, but it took me 40-ish hours, I think, to get through the whole game, including most of the side quests. Not quite all, but,
Yep.
For all intents and purposes, all of them. Yeah, and that's, it was tight. And I mean that in a complimentary way. Like it feels like there's none of the usual like bloat or busy work or anything that games are, so prone to asking players to do. Yeah. There's plenty of room for spending more time in the world and exploring, and it's not like you're rushed through anything, and it's not even like it's super linear in a bad way. It's just I don't know, tight. It's a tight experience.
It is tight. I agree. One of the most amazing things I found was the way they got rid of kind of friction when it comes to like inventory and fast travel and things like that. there's some very nice
Mm.
systems in place. Whereas if you're wandering around and all of a sudden you're overburdened because you've picked up too much cool loot, you can just send it straight to your stash straight away. You don't have to worry about the reality of running back to your stash and putting it in a chest. It's a fantasy RPG. Who gives a shit, right? That's just friction to
Yeah.
gamers, I think. That's just creating busy work
Yeah.
for people and adding game time. So they've done away with that sort of thing, and the way crafting works and everything is very streamlined, but it never feels like it's streamlined to the point of like they've dumbed it down. It's still very much in control,
No.
the player's control. So you don't feel like it's just become a kind of mini game almost where you just press a button and something happens. But you've kind of got these systems that are frictionless, yet still give player kind of agency in what they're choosing to do. And I really, really like that in Avowed. I think it does that better than just about any of these sort of RPGs I've played.
Yeah, I agree. That that moment where I realized that you could just send whatever to your stash at any point in time was the greatest moment because I saw the little icon come up being like you're essentially over encumbered, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
god damn it, I do this every goddamn time because
Yeah.
I'm someone who just carries everything, like just loot
Yep.
every single possible thing you can pick up. Um, will I ever use it? No. I'm gonna use it to sell it to get money that I'll also never use. But it was game changing when I because I was in the middle of nowhere and I was like, oh
Yeah.
shit,
Yeah.
like how am I gonna get back here to pick up the other stuff from this chest that I need? This is gonna be horrible. But it wasn't horrible. It was incredible. Just press of a button and then it's a later problem. And what I love nothing more than just putting my problems off till later. So yeah. um, but but yeah, I agree. There's nothing that they kind of ask you to do that feels tedious or unnecessary.
No.
They're really just kind of like, oh, here's your crafting, here's your, inventory screen, do whatever you want. We're not gonna make it more painful for you than it needs to be.
Yeah, that's
Which
it.
is good.
And the fact you can go to your camp spots, which are important parts of the game, I should add, where you go and you have conversations
Hmm.
with your companions and things like that. But you can go to them from anywhere. And if you choose to travel there, you can actually travel back to where you were before you went to the camp. So instead of leaving at the camp spot, you can
Yes.
leave from where you were originally. And it's like simple things like that, yes, sure, if you want to be one of those anal people, that doesn't really make much sense in terms of physics and
No.
reality and shit like that. But this is a fantasy RPG where magic is
Yeah.
involved. Like, who cares, right?
Yeah.
Just let's reduce
Honestly,
the
who
friction.
gives a
Yeah.
shit? Like, yeah. Exactly. If yeah, the amount of shit that's in this game that I'm like, this is not real. Like,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
really gonna take issue with that? That's your sticking point? Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, no. I look, I did feel like the fast travel points were extremely necessary and important.
Yep.
Because there were times when like I would find myself I would just wander and keep wandering and then end up God knows where. And sometimes you would be near a fast travel point and sometimes you wouldn't. And so the ability to be like to go back immediately to where you were before can become really important because until you
Yep.
find those fast travel points, you have no idea where they're going to be on your map. So you're just
Yep.
wandering aimlessly, hoping that you might find something near you. So it could have been bad if that
Yeah.
ability to kind of just swap back hadn't been there.
Yeah. It really encourages exploration too. This is a game with shit hidden in all the nooks and crannies, and the movement
Mm,
system that goes along with it is actually genuinely good.
yeah,
I don't think I've ever played a
yeah,
first-person RPG like this, where movement
mm,
is good, like
mm,
jumping and platforming and climbing and mantling and all that
yeah,
actually feels good. Skyrim, it's terrible.
yeah,
It always feels like shit. Most of these games, Fallout feels shit.
yeah,
Whereas the movement is
yes,
actually genuinely enjoyable. So it's fun to climb mountains. It's fun to
yeah,
find paths up to kind of
mm,
little nooks and crannies and things.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean you can get items that like increase your parkour speed to make it more
Yep.
fun to just kind of like really zoom up and down. Yeah, I really expected. So I'm someone who doesn't usually enjoy first-person games. Like, where given the opportunity, I will always switch to third-person
Third
view. Like I
person.
did in New Vegas, I did in Skyrim,
Yeah.
and I really thought that I would do it again here. But I did it for I don't know 2 minutes, and then I was like, this just doesn't feel as good. Just doesn't
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
as good to be in third person. I want to be back. In what is clearly the intended experience.
Yep.
But yeah, the fact that I'm usually so opposed to it, but in this case it was so smooth and just genuinely nice to play, I guess.
Yeah.
And for me at least, there wasn't any issues with like motion sickness or the only issue with me for first person was the fact that spiders kept just launching themselves at my face, which was a problem with the whole game. But yeah, I wish that had happened less. Because for me, and I mean, talking about exploration, like I didn't want to. I was like, this world is beautiful and I love it and I want to explore all of it. But then I would walk around a corner and I would see like giant rocks covered in cobwebs and spider webs and stuff. And I'd be like, okay, well, I guess not then. I'm not
Yeah.
going there because spiders are just going to come out of nowhere. And then I'm going to have to deal with that again. So I do
So you got a
think,
horror
and I mean, I
experience
said
as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Like in my review, it's a genuine concern that I have is that
Yeah.
I know I am scared of spiders and it's a joke, between us and like, generally, but
Yeah.
like it's not a niche fear. Like a lot of
No,
people don't like spiders and are scared of spiders. And in a world where like the rest of the world is so interesting and filled with like very very interesting lore about different races, different like things like animancy, like the way magic exists in the world, like
Yeah.
all of these different things. It's not like they're not creative enough to come up with enemies that aren't just spiders. I know that they can do it, and there were just so many spiders, and I'm like, why? Like, why would you take this thing that is going to turn so many people away from the game and then just really litter them literally throughout the whole world? Like, no place that you went was safe from spiders. Like, after you left the first area, I was like, oh, great, the spiders were kind of like themed to that first area, so I won't see anymore. And then you just find a new, different type of spider that are themed to the second world. And then that happens again and again. And it's like, really? This is what we're doing? Yeah.
So just so you know,
did
that is a part of
yeah.
the pillars kind of lore, is that the spiders
Sure.
adapt to their environment. Like it's literally part of the lore, and the spiders,
Right.
so that's probably why this has happened. But yeah, there are a lot
Okay,
of
great.
spiders.
Yeah. There really
There
are.
There are a lot
And
of
see, that's
spiders.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like the game, I think otherwise does a really good job of not making it feel like I'm missing out on any kind of lore.
Yeah.
There
There was mention
had I
of
not
it.
known it was a Pillars game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does mention it within this game, Avowed. I did come across some like lore stuff
It does.
that mentioned the spiders
Yeah.
adapting to environment, but it is something from Pillars
Yes.
that has carried over. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say though, yeah, otherwise the game did a really good job of not making me feel like I was missing out on any kind of lore. Like
No,
I'm
no,
sure
it
there
does.
is a lot more richness to it if you have played Pillars, but not having done it, I didn't necessarily feel like completely lost or anything, generally.
Yeah, there's a few references, especially to Deadfire, which was Pillars of Eternity 2. So there's a few references there. Kai, one of your main companions, mentions that he fought in the war that surrounded the Deadfire, Pillars of Eternity 2 kind of missions. So there's kind of throwback references to the older games, but it's never anything that's more than just a bit of fan service, really. I mean, it's nice to know about it, but it's not essential at all. Yeah. So they've done good, because I mean, it's a very different game to Pillars. CRPGs. If you liked Baldur's Gate, you will like Pillars. But that sort of thing isn't for everyone. So yeah, they're very good games. Both
I
of
did
them.
like Baldur's Gate.
Yep. They're very
Maybe I will
good.
try Pillars.
They're on Game Pass. At least Pillars of Eternity 2 is. I can't remember if 1 is. Yeah, and it does turn-based. They changed it. It used to be real-time combat, and then they changed it to turn-based combat with a later patch, if you would so choose, which is much better. So yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
interesting. Yeah, no, it's worth playing.
Yeah.
For those of
Yeah.
you out there who have Game Pass. Yeah.
I would like to go back for a second to something that you just mentioned, and I would like to talk about Kai for a bit. Kai and the other companions.
Yes,
who are all
absolutely.
excellent.
They are great.
How did you feel about what I have now since seen affectionately referred to on the internet as Fish Garrus? So yeah, that's
he is
Fish
Garrus again. So
and
for
his
those
friend.
that don't know, Kai
Yes.
is voiced by the same voice actor that did Garrus from Mass Effect. And he is very Garrus in this game. He is essentially Garrus Mark II.
Yes.
Same sort of character, which is fine by me. Like, you know, he's kind of like your ever buddy that's always the genuinely good bloke that doesn't mind getting his hands dirty, but he's basically his moral compass is very direct and he knows what's right and what's wrong and he's a direct sort of guy and I like him a lot. Maris,
I like him too.
the dwarf.
Marius?
Marius, yeah, I didn't quite get down with him. He's a bit of a whiner. I wasn't a massive fan of the whining.
Yeah.
Giada,
No.
she's cool. She does
Giada.
heals. Yeah, I like
She's
her.
my favorite.
She does heals, and then there's like this. I've only just kind of introduced to this other character. I forget her name. She's like a furry Yardsley. That's it, and she is something else. She's wild.
She's great.
I'm not sure how I feel about her yet. But she livens things up, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think she's a type of character that you don't often necessarily see.
No, you
in games.
don't.
I
You
think she's
definitely
cool.
don't.
I think she's like wacky.
She's very quirky, kind of almost very sexual from the kind of conversations I've had with her. You know, she's very confident. If that confidence is kind of misplaced even, but it doesn't seem to worry her a lot. And, you know, she's cool, I think. I'm not sure yet, you know. But very good writing,
I think she's
all
cool.
of them.
I like her.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think all the characters are genuinely
and they
good.
all, of course, have like and they've all got their like tragic backstories. They all have, you know, personal quests that you'll go on to learn more about them and learn more about the world and stuff as well. But I really liked all of their quests. Kai's is very good. Giada's is very good, very emotional. They're all great.
Yeah, I think, and once again, that comes down to Obsidian's like bread and butter, which is writing. They just do writing better than just about anyone, I think, in this kind of genre. Their writing is exceptional, and it always has been, and that shines really. It really shines through in Avowed. There are some issues with the game. Like, it's not a perfect game. It's a very good game, but there are some, you know, kind of like, this is a game we've played before. It's a refined version of a game we've played before, but it's still a game we have played before. You know, so it's not changing the world. It's not like reinventing the wheel. It's not doing anything that's going to break games or, you know, change things in how these RPGs are seen. It's just a really good version of a game we've played before, I think. You know. Yeah.
Interesting world, I think. I think the world like keeps it. Yeah, the gameplay is not that fresh. The combat is like, sure, yeah, you know, I've seen it before. But the world it's set in, I think, and the story that it's telling are what make it interesting. Also, visually, it's very pretty, and the environments are quite varied, I think, and like make me want to explore them. In a way that a lot of, I guess, fantasy games kind of don't. They're all just like hills and like here's some more fields and here's some more like cliffs and
Well,
whatever.
like Skyrim
But
was
there's like
just
old
fucking
buildings and
snow and
ruins and stuff.
mountains, so the entirety
Yeah,
of Skyrim
exactly.
was snow and mountains. Like there was nothing else, and that
Yeah.
game was a million hours long. So whereas
No.
Avowed has like some very distinct
Yeah.
areas, and they're very unique to
Mm.
what you come across in the other areas in the game. So, um, yeah, you've certainly got that artistic flair that Obsidian have. They don't stick to realism ever. Like if you've ever played the Outer Worlds, the skyboxes in the Outer Worlds
Mm.
are just genuinely amazing. They're just great, and they go wild, and that kind of desire to be wild in the art department is on show in Avowed. It's not quite as wild as the Outer Worlds, but it's certainly like it's pushing
No.
what fantasy worlds, those kind of tropes that we expect in fantasy. They're kind of pushed to their limits with what you see here, and which is very cool.
It is. It
It is.
is. It is very cool. Um, yeah. Really good time. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's not gonna change the world. It's nothing game changing, but it was a really solid. Like I enjoyed all 40 hours that I put into it. I um have very little to complain about, I guess, other than to
Yeah.
say that parts of it are nothing new. You know.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how I feel about like I said, about three-quarters of the way in. I think this is a really good version of a game I've played before. And that's not a
Mm.
slight on anything, like there's nothing wrong with that. Uh, I think
No.
there's an
I do.
expectation with these sort of games that
Mm.
they need to, it's a big game from Xbox. It's a big AAA title. So there's these expectations that it's going to rewrite gaming history in some way or change the genre or something like that. There's nothing wrong with it just making a
Mm.
really good version of stuff we like already.
No. And I do think like we've talked a lot about the story, but like, the story kind of touches on themes and made me think in ways that a lot of RPGs don't successfully manage to do.
Mm,
So while it might not be anything necessarily new, it is doing a really good job of making me reflect on some of these things, like themes that are rarely done well in games about like colonialism,
mm,
and like racism and all of these really big things that it doesn't become necessarily clear the choices that you're making and the things you're being forced to think about until near to the end. And it also doesn't necessarily answer all the questions that it poses to you along the way. But I will say that it did a really, really good job of making me make choices that I wasn't comfortable with.
yeah,
That were really very much like there is no clear good decision here. Nobody, like, no decision is going to make everyone happy. I am just going to have to feel and go with my gut and figure out in the moment what feels best to me. And I was doing that for every single big decision that I made. Like, it's not
yeah,
even like I could choose a playstyle or choose a type of character that I was going to play. It really was like, oh, okay, I've been put into this position, and then I'm going to have to just take it as it comes. And I think that there are very few games that manage to do like to navigate that gray area,
yeah,
particularly as consistently as this did. Um, yeah, well, which
yeah.
Avowed did, I
Absolutely.
think,
That gray
extremely well.
morality is very
Mm.
much present. Like so, most games, as everyone's aware, is it's generally you're a goodie or you're a baddie. And it's
Mm.
very obvious which is which. Dragon Age, Mass Effect, everything they do
Mm.
that, and it's very obvious. Whereas here, something that may seem like the right thing to do may end up not being the right thing to do, and you won't
Mhm.
know until you've made that decision. So I think that adds a lot of replayability to the game as well. Like there is, I can see clearly a lot of paths and a lot of ways to play this game, from a narrative side anyway. So yeah, I think they kind of straddle that line of grey very, very well. And like you said,
Mm.
very few RPGs can do it.
Yeah, it's
Mm,
definitely a credit to their writing
yeah.
narrative abilities.
Well, on that note, have you got anything else you feel you need to say about Avowed? Anything that we've missed in this conversation?
we've covered all the main points for me. I've had my chance to rant about the spiders, which I will concede. Okay, it's like in universe, it's a thing, and that's fine. But we could have just,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
I
gonna haunt me
understand. I
forever.
understand.
I want, yeah, I want to explore your world. You know, like if you give me a game and an interesting place to explore, I want to be able to like walk through it and not feel like a spider is just gonna. And they're quick, like they're quick spiders. They go
Yeah.
from like far away to really just launch towards you. Anyway, yes. So we've spoken about the spiders. We've spoken about the story and the world, and no, I mean, I think we've covered everything. It's a really really solid experience. I think it gave me everything I wanted from it.
Yep.
As someone who played Pillars of Eternity, did you feel like it was what you expected and what you wanted?
From the sales pitch, yeah, I feel like it absolutely brought that Pillars universe into a more approachable mold for more people. I mean, I like CRPGs. I like that old style of role playing game because I grew up with them. But I certainly recognize they're not for everyone. Whereas Avowed kind of is. It really is a much more approachable game, and it's an everyone game. That's not to lessen what Pillars 1 and 2 did. Um, they are very, very good video games, but this is kind of more approachable for everyone. And the only thing I want to add to our conversation is there's some really quality side quests in this game that you can miss if you don't explore.
Yes.
Like there's one instance which is kind of early on where you come across this crazy kind of oracle guy in a cave that has built an effigy to his god, and it creates, and you come up with this kind of really kind of gray moral choice and it's a side quest. It's not even main quest stuff, and you've got this kind of choice to bring this god back or to chain it forever or to punish it, and there's all these kind of moments in a side quest which I haven't seen since The Witcher, you know, that have done side quests with meaning like that, and for me that is like the highest praise, because as everyone knows, The Witcher 3 did side quests so well and everything was meaningful. It's very much the same in Avowed here, that all the side quests are meaningful.
Yeah.
There's no I'm just going to go and fetch 6 carrots and give them to a farmer quests. There is genuine like point to doing everything in the game. So it means hanging around and exploring is so much more satisfying, I think. And that's my main takeaway.
And that
from the
quest that
game.
you were talking about just then,
Yeah.
yeah, that quest you just mentioned, that is a side quest that you can totally mention, does have implications for the end of the game. So
Yeah. And you could totally miss that. Absolutely, because it's not even part of the main story. It's just something you stumble across if you're lucky, I
No.
guess. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
All right, then, we might leave it there. Thank you for joining us for this review discussion. Make sure you head over to player2.net.au and check out all our reviews, opinion pieces, previews, podcasts, all that sort of stuff. Check out the written review of Jess's Avowed review, which is up now. And like and subscribe if you're watching this on video, or, give us stars or whatever your podcast a choice wants you to do to make us look good. Do that thing. We would really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Jess, where can we find you on the wild web?
Yes, mostly these days Blue Sky is the way for many people, I think. If you are watching this video, you should be able to see my Blue Sky handle there. For everybody else, it's justzam.bsky.social or whatever the default Blue Sky link is. So you can find me on there talking about games and whatever else takes my fancy.
Excellent. You can find me at Hewson on Blue Sky, or Player2 AU on Blue Sky if you want to follow for Player2 stuff. Thank you for joining us, and we will catch you on another review discussion soon. Catch you later.